What's up, China Riders? TBR7 Tao 2019. So, I think what we're going to try to do today is get started on removing pretty much the whole front end, getting the front tire off, getting the forks out. I want to drain the fork oil. I kind of have what's in there that came with the bike, and rumor is it's crap. So I kind of went ahead and bought something that was a little bit more quality. I went with the 15 weight Bell Ray. Because I'm kind of a big guy, 200 plus, so it's kind of a mystery. I want to see how much fork oil is in each. I'm sure it'll be crap. Replace it with 15 weight, etc., etc. But before we do anything, a quick disclaimer.
Warning, I am not a certified professional mechanic, nor do I play one on TV. I've watched countless hours of YouTube, speak with an incredibly confident tone. Any nuts, bolts, screws, adjustments, moderations, modifications, hacks, cheats, shortcuts, or otherwise are done at your own risk. Thank you.
Alright, step one, let's get the front tire off. Probably going to grease the bearings, definitely going to grease the axle. And I have put thread lock on that axle when I put it on, so it should be on there pretty good. 19 millimeter on this side, 14 millimeter on this side. You want to use a ratchet? Fine, whatever floats your boat. So I'm not going to kind of record myself loosening nuts. I think you guys can pretty much figure that out. But I will call out nuts and bolts, measurements, wrenches, and so on where applicable. So we're going to pop this tire off. Give me a minute. My front axle bolt. When I initially did the installation, and I did the installation when I ordered the TBR, I didn't have the company put it together. Instead of grease, it was suggested to me to use anti-seize, which I did, and this came out immediately. So I imagine some people are probably greasing them. They probably have a theory that they should be greasing them. It was suggested to me use anti-seize, and that's what I did, and the bolt came out no problem and looks in pretty good shape. When you do get your front tire off, it's a good time to take a look at your rotor, inspect your rotor. I mean, obviously this is pretty new. I think I got less than 300 miles on the bike, and I've had it, you know, not even a year. Good time to check your spokes. Definitely a good time to grease and service your wheel bearings, assuming you can access them. So mine look like they have a little grease in there, but I'm definitely going to get in there and pop some marine grease. I'm not sure about the cheap grease that they used out of the factory, but I'll put some quality stuff in. All right, next we're going to take the brake caliper off. 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter. And the bolts that hold these clips on are also 10 millimeter. So get your 10 millimeter out. Again, ratchet or open end. And when you do hang up your caliper, don't let it dangle. I don't like to do that. Try to find a place on the bike where you can kind of position it. Obviously not from the forks, because those forks are coming off. So when you have them off, obviously there's a wear indicator. That's what the grooves are for. Pretty easy to do it on the bike, but now that you got it off and in your hand, you can really get in there and just take a look and see if anything is amiss. Don't lose these 10 millimeter bolts. It's the other thing to remember. So what I'll do is I'll just screw them into the caliper when I hang it over the bike, and this way they won't go missing. And they will go missing, because we all know that little bolts like to grow legs and walk away. Alright, next we want to crack the top of the fork caps. They are going to be impossible to do if you take the forks off the bike. Best to do it now while they're secured in the bridge, in the triple tree. Crack them. We're not popping them open completely, but we just want to get them to a point where you'll be able to manipulate them. This is soft metal, so be careful with it. It's on there pretty good. There's some torque specs. When I put them back on, I'll indicate that at the end of the video. 17 millimeter. I'll use an extension so I can get over and above the handlebars, but please, I hate to say it, it's kind of that cheap Chinese metal, and it is going to strip on you, so just do it gently. Crack both of them, and then we'll address how we get to the top fork clamp, triple tree clamp, which is also kind of doing dual purpose and holding on the headlight housing. So there's a way around it. We'll figure it out. Alright, now we're going to take the top fork triple tree bolt off. Well, we're going to loosen it, and it's tucked in here. I don't know if I can get you a good angle here with the light. It's going to be really tough, but basically it's right there. With an open-ended 10 millimeter wrench, you can get in there and muck about. Again, it serves multi-purpose. It's holding on the bracket for the turn signal indicator. It's holding the bracket for the headlight. It's definitely good use of a single bolt to kind of multi-purpose it, but just be aware. So I don't think you need to mess with the whole housing. I'm going to try to avoid that. So we're going to loosen this on both sides here and there, and then we'll talk about the lower bridge clamp bolts too. Got to be careful with those. Alright, so we got the top triple tree fork clamp bolts open. Now I'm going to get the lower 210 millimeter again right here. I'm prepared. I've got a towel on the floor. I'm going to actually sit down and hold it as I loosen it, because once I loose it, chances are she's going to slide right through and drop down. We don't want to damage or dink the end of the fork. So keep that in mind when you're loosening this. Hold on for dear life. So here's the fork removed for the record. I want to say this thing feels like it's about 20 pounds. 10, 15 or 20 pounds. It's heavy, so when you do loosen it, she's going to come sliding down. So be prepared for that. Just kind of a word to the wise. This sucker is not light. Do the same thing for the other side. Alright, here comes the mystery. So now I'm going to crack open the fork. It's a good idea to lift these clips up. You can free this stuff up a little bit. This way I can pump the fork a couple of times and make life a little bit easier. And here's a little tip at Walmart. A measuring cup with milliliters for 97 cents. Now, you know, it doesn't really kind of give you, it goes by 50 ml units, but there's a kind of a way to work around that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain these forks. This is a big mystery right now. Like, what was in each of these forks? How much was in there? Is it the same amount? So we're going to do the one on the left side if I'm facing the bike. So if I was on the bike, that would be your throttle hand on the right side. So we'll dump this out into there. Obviously I've got, I do have a catch basin behind me. I'm just going to use some plastic sheathing so it doesn't get all over the floor. But alright, so I removed the fork cap. There is a preload spacer. Don't lose that. Some people go bigger. Now I'm going to take the actual fork spring out. Try to do it carefully so I don't get oil all over the place. Interestingly enough, okay, just going to lay that right there. And yeah, I know this is kind of not ideal, but this won't be the best camera angle in the world. But yeah, we're gonna want to try to capture all the old fork oil in here. Let's see what comes out. It actually doesn't look that bad. It's not as black as I've seen in some videos. Probably can't see that. Oh, here comes some of the black junk. There's the black stuff. That's one pump. That's 2 pumps. 3 pumps. You're probably not getting any of this. Sorry about the camera angle. 4 pumps. 5 pumps. Alright, a lot of people will probably just leave it sitting upside down for 10 minutes or so to drain every last bit out. I'm not going to do that. I have no interest in doing that. So, alright, so out here on a level surface, I don't know if you can see it, we're about close to 180. Yeah, it's close to 180, which is where I'm going to kind of repeat it. I'm going to put it in the same place, right about 180. It's not quite 200, but close enough, so that's where we're going to go again. I'm going to go with, again, the Bellaray 15 weight. This is a 1 liter jar or bottle rather, and it cost 16 bucks on Amazon. For whatever reason, the 10 weight was a lot more expensive. So I'm going to put in the same amount, right? That's going to be the left fork. We'll consider that serviced. Then I'll go ahead and I'll pop the right fork. So basically, gonna put the same amount here, put this into the fork, spring back, cap back on, and then we'll pop the right one off and see what the difference is. Interesting note, I don't know if you can see it, the Bellaray fork oil is actually green. It's got a green hue to it. I'm not sure if you can see that. Alright, yummy yummy. Yummy yummy. Fill her up. Might have went close to 190. It was about 180. Because I am going to controversially lower the forks a little bit at the triple tree. I'm probably going to lower them about an inch. I know that messes with rake and trail, but I'm kind of tippy-toeing on the bike. So everyone says don't do it. I'm going to experiment with it. Fork spring gently goes back in. That's a little bit phallic. Don't tell my wife. Let's see here. Preload spacer. And then the fork cap. You gotta get a little torquer on it. Just to get her started. I might need a wrench for that. Might need a wrench for that. Just to get her started. Catch a few teeth. Yeah, no, she's not going anywhere. Snug that up as best I could. Obviously, we go balls to the wall when it's on the bike. So, we will say, congratulations, that's one fork that's been serviced. Okay? Feels nice and stiff. Doesn't look like there's any leaks in the fork seals. Pop that little cutie back on. And life is good. Alright, so that's one down. Alright, so here's the plan for lowering the forks. Again, people really advise against this. Bike's a little too tall for me. I did lower the rear shock. I just want to bring this down a little bit. Not going to get too aggressive. So, a piece of electrical tape measures 3/4 of an inch. I think that's conservative. Maybe an inch or beyond might be a little too crazy. So I'm going to put a piece of electrical tape. I've put the forks back on. I've raised them up quite a bit. Right along here and right along the other fork, and then lower them back down to that level. So that kind of gets me in the ballpark where it's fairly equal. So I'm going to use this straight edge where the end of the fork cap is, put a piece of electrical tape, and that becomes my guide in terms of how far to lower it. Then I'm going to try to true everything up with a straight edge and a level. So I'll show you how all that works. Again, ideally, you put the front tire on, you drop the bike down to the ground, you snug everything up to true it up, and then you do your formal tighten and torque it down. But I'm going to try it a little bit differently. Ultimately, the bike's winterized right now, and it's up on a stand. So when I do get it out for its first run, I can make adjustments without going crazy. It's not too labor intensive. So stay tuned. Let's see how this goes. Look here, I've raised the forks. I've kind of snugged them down. They're not super tight. I've raised the fork from the triple tree. And if I got a measurement to the top of the fork cap, I'm at 10.5 millimeter on that side. Alright, so here's where life gets insane. Torque values. The TBR7 manual does not come with torque values in the manual. It does have a torque spec for the oil drain plug, that's it. So now, I got my hands on a Bras 250 manual, there's a CSC TT250 manual, there's a Honda manual. Right around the average, they're saying the lower fork pinch bolts torque value is 25 foot-pounds. So that's what I'm going to tighten it to. 25 foot-pounds. and we'll leave it at that. Is it too much? Maybe. Go ahead and leave in the comments if I'm insane. And the top pinch bolt they're saying is 17 foot-pounds. So again, totally welcome your feedback in the comments, but this is where things get a little crazy. Alright, front brake caliper, the two 10mm bolts. It's a good idea to put some blue thread lock on there. I mean, that's a critical component. 10mm, I'm going to torque it down. The torque specification is 22 foot-pounds. That is the consensus. Front tires back on. Remember, spacers on that side. Tach speedometers on that side. Thread lock for the nut. Torque specs, again, up in the air. General consensus, 35 foot-pounds. I think we might call it a day.